But I want to address this simping allegation. Do I simp for black women? Yes. I love black women. I don't like y'all niggas. This is an easy decision to make. Sorry.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value.
Hey, yo, Quantic, run them bands up. 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 JLY.
JLY. JLY.
All right, I guess it's about time we started this show up. What is good, people? Evening. Welcome all. Thank you for tuning in once more. Other than random things about Black women, it's not really clear what we're going to be talking about if you just read the title or looked at the picture. I know, it's a little vague. There's a conversation that caught my attention recently, and I kind of want to break that down, but I like to fill out the time with other interesting things, and I've just been noticing, the woke Black chicks lately. Woke Black women have caught my attention recently. Did you know there are women in space now? I don't even mean like female astronauts. We've had female astronauts for a long time. I just mean like women, like hoes. Did you know there are hoes floating above us in low Earth orbit? We have satellite thoughts now. Yes, we have satellite thoughts now. Space hoes. Doesn't sound all that bad when you think about it. Space hoes. No, you almost want to like brand it, put it on a coffee mug or something, you know? Space hose. I don't know if ultimately space hose is a good thing, but that's where we are right now. You know, if you're gonna have female astronauts, it's only a matter of time before you get space hose. It is what it is. I mean, you know, who am I to complain? I haven't been into space. Who am I to complain about space hoes? Space hoes winning, bro. Space hoes are winning. Never before has a black woman looked down from a pond so high at black men. Can you just imagine the look on Gayle King's face as she looked down at all the black men she's now officially better than? I just can't take it all. I for one, I just can't take it all. It's just a bit too much for me. I don't know about you guys, but it's just a lot for me.
Trust black women, they lead the way. Trust black women, they lead the way. White women, stop abandoning your sisters. Trust black women, they lead the way. Oh, we're mad as hell. Oh, can't you tell? Oh, we're mad as hell. Can't you tell? We dissent, you fucking fascists. Oh, we're mad as hell. Can't you tell? Thank you. Trust black women, they lead the way. Trust black women, they lead the way. White women, stop abandoning your sisters. Trust black women, they lead the way. Oh, we're mad as hell. Oh, can't you tell? Oh, we're mad as hell. Can't you tell? We dissent, you fucking fascists. Oh, we're mad as hell. Can't you tell?
All right, I'm sorry. I had to step away for a minute and hand out a couple of wrenches on the second channel. Yeah, so where was I? Where was I? Oh yeah. Hoes in space. Trust black women, hoes in space. Right. We're back on it. We're back on it.
But the best part was when we got back in our seats after zero G's, Katie sang "What a Wonderful World."
She did.
Nice.
Oh, come on.
She sang "What a Wonderful World." I see trees. Oh, yes.
Oh.
Because we've been asking her to sing all the time, and she wouldn't. And then, because everybody said, "Sing roar, sing fireworks," and she said, "It's not about me. I wanted to talk about the world."
Wow.
You know, isn't that nice?
That's
You got to ask her about that.
That's really.
Yeah, it's not about them. It's about the world. What is it about hoes in space? They instantly become like philosophers or something.
What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride.
You went for a ride in a fancy new car, sweetie. You're not an astronaut. You're not an astronaut. You're not even like one of those Russian monkeys. You went for a fancy ride in a new car. Oh, shout out to Deacon Dave gifting memberships. Deacon Dave apparently gifted a membership I don't know who that who the lucky recipient is, but now you're stuck with me. All right, no regifting. No regifting, all right? It's yours now. I'm yours now. You can't give me back. Shout out to Deacon Dave gifting memberships out there. We're bringing people into the church. We are bringing people into the church day by day.
Again, okay, I'm gonna say it again. I come in the name of Jesus. Repeat it after me, bitch. I come in the name of Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit.
But anyway, Gail went on a ride in a fancy new car.
What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride. What do you say to people who think that this was frivolous or just a ride? You know, I think the message that it sends is very, very powerful. And the people that say that, by the way, weren't there. What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride.
It was frivolous. I mean, what was the point of having all those women in space? Help me out here. Like, what did you do in space? Did you talk to the aliens? Did you discover a new theory on quantum physics?
Just 3 days. Have you heard? But look, before heading out here to Texas, Gail and I visited the American Museum of Natural History back in New York City. That is where astrophysicist Jackie Faherty gave us a preview of what Gail will be looking at 62 miles above the Earth. Check it out.
Because everybody knows space is all about women and gay men, right? And, you know, honestly, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, technically, this is a type of progress. And I mean that seriously. We're talking about like space travel, and you know how Elon, he wants to become like an interplanetary species or whatever that's supposed to be. It's supposed to be Martian niggas or something in the future. I don't know. But you know, space travel is becoming more of an accessible norm when space is full of hoes and gays. Think about it. Think about it. It is actually a great sign that space travel is now expanding to the non-professional class. This is really a symbolic flight. First the hoes and the gays, and then, like, you know, the families who want to go on Disney vacations and stuff like that. Because hoes and gays, they got a lot of disposable income, so we can sacrifice them first. Then once we get the price down, we can get like lunar Disney, and then we'll all be going to space like once a year as a family.
So when we look out, we'll see that view. I thought we were going to see a little round ball.
You're going to see a view like this where you get the curvature of the planet.
Okay.
You will reach an altitude where the atmosphere gets thinner, 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 and then the sky will start to turn dark. And darker and darker. And it'll be so cool. I have to say.
How cool was it just to do that?
I was going to say, Vlad, her enthusiasm was so infectious.
Yes.
I felt excited just talking to her.
Yeah, she was incredibly infectious because, and she held your hands. And she said,
she did.
You remember, Gail? She said, yeah, Gail, go do this. Go do this.
I'm relying on the kindness of strangers a lot these days, I have to say.
Well, then, so after we.
Could you imagine showing this image to the guys at NASA like 50, 75 years ago when they were trying to get a rocket up into space? It was all leading to this moment. Black women and space gays, bro. It was all leading up to this moment. I hope you guys are proud. I hope all of you NASA geniuses can look back at your work and be happy. Be proud of yourselves. Remember that one time they made the movie about how the black women did math and they saved the space program because black women did math? You guys remember that? That was dope, right?
To help me correct that narrative, so explain to our audience why even a trip like this one, all the trips that we take in this space benefit mankind.
So it benefits humankind, and I'm going to keep correcting the mankind and the man-made and the man missions, because
what is the difference between saying mankind and humankind? It's still not womankind. What was the point of that correction? Like, come on, this is why we bring chicks into space, so you could like HR department us to death. Imagine the first HR department in space, though. Like, oh my God. You know, there was a story. There was a true story. There is a woman who wanted to, she was an astronaut, and she was on like the International Space Station. And I guess she got upset. She wanted to go home. You know how it is. Sometimes, you ever been on a sleepover and you get there and it's like 11 o'clock and it's time to go to bed and you really want to go home? It was like that, but on the space station. And so because she's on the space station and she's not scheduled to leave, because, you know, it's a big deal to get another spaceship up there. It's not like there's an Uber. So she was stuck, and she didn't want to be stuck. So she started breaking the spaceship. Did you hear about that? I promise you, it is a true story. She started to sabotage the spaceship so they would bring her back quicker. But yeah. This is totally for humankind, not mankind. Because what do men know about space anyway, right?
To help me correct that narrative, so explain to our audience why even a trip like this one, all the trips that we take in this space benefit mankind.
So it benefits humankind, and I'm going to keep correcting the mankind and the man-made and the man missions, because this is exactly what this mission is about, is expanding the perspective of who does space.
When we send up drones into the sky, they're still considered unmanned, right? Are we going to say the drone is unhuman? Is the drone piloted by automatic artificial box technology? Like, what are we doing with this word game?
Why is space important? When you just look at it, when you go up, you get a perspective on this world that you can't get from looking down on the ground, and you can get it much faster. So whether it's looking at roads, mapping,
to help you.
We're not allowed to say mankind anymore, because we have a woke black woman in charge of the space HR department. And it's not just a space thing, but you know, as a country, I feel like this is a high point and a low point all at the same time. Like, yeah, you know, we've been doing this space thing for like 75 years and all that, and we still don't know. We're not sure how we got to the moon the first time. Like, literally, look it up. Nobody can duplicate how we got to the moon. They like threw away the plans and they scratched out all the notebooks and stuff. It's really weird how we got to the moon the first time. But all right, so after that whole weird thing, we're back in space, and that's good. But they're like women and gays up there now. Like, seriously, when you were a kid, when you're a little boy, you had like dreams and hopes and shit. You remember that? You remember having dreams and hopes as a little boy? Go back to that time. When you were a little boy and you had dreams and hopes, and one of those dreams and hopes was like being an astronaut. Do you think you would have still wanted to be an astronaut if you knew that space was just full of women and gays? It's the new frontier.
Critical milestone of this whole ascent. Oprah watching her best friend go to space.
Watching Oprah cry as her secret lesbian lover takes orbit. This is a national moment of celebration. I just, for some reason, it just occurred to me. This is the weirdest question in the world. But if you could catch one of Oprah's teardrops and bottle it, how much do you think it would be worth? I feel like there's a person out there who would buy that. 1 milliliter jar of black female billionaire tears. This would have been a perfect moment to start a little business here.
Critical milestone of this whole ascent. Oprah watching her best friend go to space.
Why is the old black guy crying? Is the old black guy crying too? Why is he crying? Is that his daughter? Is that Gayle King's dad? Why is he crying? What's going on here? Women get into space and everybody get all misty-eyed. I don't like what's happening here. I don't really like this. But not only are black women in space, like they're in the future and they're in the past. Inescapable.
I have never been in tudor costume before, but I love this.
I feel really, really cool and like I'm in 1536.
The play begins the day that Anne Boleyn gets arrested.
And it's about three women. They realize the parallels between their normal life and the real drama that is taking place at a distance.
It explores politics. It explores female friendship, sex, desire, class, freedom.
It's electric.
I don't want to watch a TV show or a movie with a black Anne Boleyn unless at one point, it only has to happen once, but at one point I want to hear in a perfect period Victorian accent, "Charles, how dare you marry this nigga?" That's the only way I would tolerate this bullshit, is if somebody actually said it. Somebody has to say the word. It's the only way to make this palatable, is if somebody actually says the word. Otherwise, what are we doing here? This is just chicks playing dress up. There's nothing historical about this.
The play begins the day that Anne Boleyn gets arrested.
And it's about three women. They realize the parallels between their normal life and the real drama that is taking place at a distance.
It explores politics. It explores female friendship, sex, desire, class, freedom.
It's electric. It's incredible. I'm really excited about it.
Ava Pickett, the writer, is just a complete force, and this script it's so good. It's so good. Everyone's brilliant, and this cast is perfect.
It speaks for itself. It's going to be so much fun.
1536. At least it's not 1619. But we're moving the woke black women backwards through time.
Black women cry, we could be rolling around on the ground screaming. And you are moved because you've been socialized not to see us as human beings. Fuck. Our tears don't matter to you, but a white woman, and y'all know that shit. That's why.
I hate the fact that white people have gotten into this position of no pushback. And a moment like this doesn't require like some kind of, George Lincoln Rockwell eloquent anti-diversity speech. Just a simple question. Why should I care about you? Do you care about me?
Black women cry, we could be rolling around on the ground screaming. And you are moved because you've been socialized not to see us as human beings. Fuck. Our tears don't matter to you, but a white woman, and y'all know that shit. That's why I'm not here for the fragility. You know that. And so you very deliberately turn the shit on as a way to avoid accountability.
Webster, it is a very jealous thing, isn't it? The whole thing reeks of jealousy.
I want what you white hoes get, and I want it today, ASAP, not tomorrow.
Yep.
Purposefully. That's not fragility. That's manipulation. That's strategic. That's diabolical. That's not fragility. And so this notion of white fragility is supposed to tell us what? We're supposed to let you off the hook because you can't handle it? No, you don't want to.
You know what kills me about these moments? Among many things, one group of women having the nerve and audacity to call another group of women manipulative and diabolical, as if you don't all sit down to pee together, as if you don't all cycle up your you don't all sync up your cycles together. I mean, pot kettle much. What group of women are not manipulative and diabolical? Honestly, the human species might not really be here if women weren't manipulative and diabolical. There's like an evolutionary purpose to that shit.
And every time we hold your feet to the fire, all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't have to know. And now that I'm trying to make you know, you want to cry so we can end the conversation. This is how you run away. So how do I hold you accountable if you're all up in your feelings? How come I don't get to be in my feelings? I'm sitting here telling you about generations of your people.
Now, when the white man starts reading his old books, you know, when the white man dusts off one of those books from like the late 1800s and he starts telling Black women about their people, like, you was butt naked on a zebra when I met you. Now you want half? Oh, no, that's not fair, though. You can't do that.
Your ancestors killing mine. How come I don't get to turn tears on and move you? Sounds like I should be the one crying, no? Sounds like those tears should be mine. Sounds like the fragility might be mine, but no, I gotta be strong. Look at me.
One day this whole thing's gonna turn, and it's gonna be wild when it happens. When the credit finally runs out, it's gonna be an amazing moment. But that brings us to the point I wanted to talk about today. There was a conversation. There's a YouTube channel called The Free Press. Let's take a look, right? They had a conversation here. You know, it's one of those like Jubilee style things, a bunch of people in a room sitting in a circle talking about whatever. And this is titled Conservatives and Progressives Debate Race and Racism in America. And I watched it a little bit. I didn't watch every moment of it, but I watched enough of it to want to come back to do it as a show, because I realized it's basically woke Black women versus everybody. It's even kind of woke Black women versus woke white people.
Milwaukee is inherently one of the racist cities in the nation, most segregated in the nation.
There are only 2 races in this country that face legal discrimination, and it's whites and Asians.
Why do we need
that white guy right there? He basically played the white man for this whole conversation. Like, there's another white guy in the room, but I don't know what's up with him. But that one white guy, he played like the right-wing white male role perfectly for this conversation.
need to help everybody and not help the people that are here?
Would you concede on some level that 50 or 60 years of affirmative action is a form of reparations?
Hell no.
Oh, no.
Everybody else got a big check.
You would like me to bear responsibility for actions committed in the past?
No, that's what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying. I just said what I'm saying.
Rhonda's saying that if she
you
talks
don't
about
want to hear what I'm saying.
The candidates in the upcoming election approach issues of race from very different perspectives.
America has a long history of systemic racism.
I will eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the entire federal government.
In this,
I saw something recently about Trump. This is actually just before the election, but apparently Trump is kind of being billed as like the first ever president to kind of fight back against the tide of anti-white sentiment and hostility that's kind of rising up in the country. And I wonder how far he's going to go with that. Like, imagine if Donald Trump had said Austin Metcalf could have been my son. Oh, man. Tiki torches, bro. Tiki torches.
This episode of Swing State Debates, I'm in Wisconsin to speak to voters about how they think about race and racism in 2024.
I have to solve racism in an hour.
Oh my God. How do you solve racism? Nobody said we were doing that.
I'd just like you to go around the circle and tell me who you are, a little brief introduction. So let's start with you.
I am Skylar Croy. I'm an associate counsel with the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. I work on the Equality Under the Law project, which seeks to vindicate the constitutional rights of individuals across the country.
I'm Rhonda Hill. I am the founder and director of an organization called Race and Faith, where we work with groups and individuals looking to be more anti-racist in their
race and faith. It's an interesting combination of two disparate threads, or you would think two disparate threads. What do race and faith really have to do with one another?
But if man had to find out that his God was a woman,
I say the black woman is God, and
black woman is God.
I say the black woman is God.
The black woman is God because, she was the first organism on this planet.
practices and or policies.
My name is Charlene Albuquerque. I am the director of the Black Republican Coalition.
And I'm Martha Berry.
She is a Black Republican. You know who else is a Black Republican? The Black lady judge who lowered the bail for Carmelo Anthony by 75%. Go Black Republicans.
I'm retired, and I was formerly the Chief Racial Justice Officer at the YWCA Southeast Wisconsin.
And my name is Corey Houston, and I just recently started a nonprofit called Politics Impact People. And also I volunteer for the GOP in Milwaukee.
Let's start with an easy one. I'd like you all to give me your definition of the word racism.
I'm just going to go with the traditional understanding and a way that I've learned it is racism is power and privilege put together to then disadvantage those who don't have the same power and privilege.
I'm pretty sure there's an individual professor, maybe 30, 50 years ago, we can track this idea back to. The idea that racism is a combination of power plus privilege. I imagine it was sort of a Marxist shift that people engaged in once there was enough Black people in the institutions to notice how much institutional power Black people had access to, or they shifted it around. It's like, no. It's power plus privilege. You know, we're in the building, but we don't really run it. We're slaves in this building, so it's still racism here. And I just realized it's such an unusable, unworkable definition for a simple concept.
Because of skin color.
I think racism starts with a level of prejudice, but I think it's deeper in that it's not just an individual situation. So I think the privilege and power, it's like a three-legged stool, and all three of those, privilege, power, and prejudice, contribute to making racism what it is.
I would give it just a more narrow definition as similar of just judging someone by their skin color. It's not it's a learned behavior, not born that way.
Rhonda, you mentioned what I've learned was this. So can you talk about where did you learn this sort of definition of racism?
Personally, at a personal level, in college was actually my.
It's always in college. The colleges are doing a number on a lot of our women. I'm going to go out on a limb, not even a limb. I don't even think this is a limb anymore. This is like a firm balcony at this point. But college is making women unlovable and unlikable and unmarriageable. I don't know how long it'll be before we get a ABC News primetime show about how college is making women unmarriageable and unlikable, but that's literally what's happening. It's the colleges. They're just putting a bunch of bullshit in the heads of women, and then when the guys encounter the women, you know, we don't want to stick around.
Our first experience with like.
And I'm sorry, but these two Black women, they both look like unhappiness. They just do. They're just something just anti-happy in these women. I just
to personal racism, that direct racist action from one individual to another. A few years after that, I took one of Martha's courses at the YWCA. It's called Unlearning Racism. And from there and through my work, I really just.
So the Black woman studied under the white woman about how to fight racism, white people. Interesting.
Became more engaged and decided to really take it on as something that I wanted to do myself.
I think one of the problems with the idea of sort of systemic racism or structural racism is that it can be a very amorphous concept. And for that reason, it's not always clear how we take that concept and do something to correct it. It reminds me a little bit of Tyrion Lannister on trial.
This one guy is like the only adult in this entire conversation. It's weird how he just embodied like all the wisdom of all the white men before him and summoned it. He summoned it all in this moment where even the other alleged conservative people, they all wound up looking kind of progressive and liberal compared to him. It was just an interesting thing to watch happen.
In Game of Thrones, when he says they, the ominous they, and it's like, well, what is they? Who is doing this? I'm just not sure from that perspective that it ends up being especially helpful.
I wouldn't go with an amorphous they. I think there's places where the institutions have helped to embed certain things. So, I mean, there's lots of institutions we could think about, and I'm not an expert in any of them. So I was just thinking about housing. So if you look at redlining and what that did in our country, it made it tough for, I'm just going to pick on Rhonda because I know her.
Evening, Doc. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Are you on the main channel, Doc? If you're in the main channel, you got to hit that link and get over to the backup channel. That's where all the people are, Doc. Anybody listening on the main Hood Conservative channel, do me a favor, hit that link in the chat and go over and join us in the backup channel on the Hood Conservative too. Welcome to the show, Doc.
If you were trying to look in my neighborhood, which is mostly white, although there's people of color in my neighborhood, would you be shown that house? Would you be shown that neighborhood? Would you be assumed to be okay? But then it's not just, could she find something? Would the bank give her a loan that would allow her to have access to the money to be able to do that? And in Milwaukee, it's been particularly challenging for families of color in that a lot of banks weren't willing to loan the money. So when you talk about an institution, I'm just picking housing. We could pick any number of other things, but you know, it seems like there's ways that many of those different groups were in cahoots with each other, I guess, for lack of a better word.
So
Now, the problem with the redlining story that it gets left out, and this is the benefit of having a right wing kind of body of knowledge to add to these conversations. Let's run a little thought exercise, right? If the banks won't loan to Black people, or if the banks would only lend to Black people if they bought particular houses in particular neighborhoods, well, who owned the bank? And wouldn't the individuals or the groups of individuals who own the bank ultimately be responsible for the redlining? How can we never blame redlining on the people who own the banks? How can we never do that? I feel like if I did that, though, I would get accused of some other kind of ism, and I don't really need that right now.
Certainly there are racial disparities that exist in this world. I would think everyone here would agree with that. I think the issue becomes, though, an assumption that when those disparities exist, it must be caused by racism. If you look at the 2022 census data, the top 5 ethnicities in terms of income, none of them were white. It was Indians, Filipinos, Iranians, South African, and Lebanese. In fact, 71 of 71, the very bottom, was Appalachian, so rural whites. I think when we look at something like a purported disparity in housing, for example, if we're going to actually address it, I think we need to get granular about it and get down to the actual evidence of discrimination and try and address it at that root core from a policy perspective.
Well, it is certainly true, at least, that because of racist policies of the past, Black Americans, on average, were not able to build wealth in the way that other Americans were. I mean, that I don't think would you dispute that, Skylar?
Again, I think when you just look at the census data, again, the top 5 households, right, or the top 5 ethnicities right now are Indian, Filipino, Iranian, South African, and Lebanese. If we're talking about something like white privilege, how do we factor in the fact that Indian households are earning an average income of $152,000 a year?
Damn white man and his pesky numbers. Yes, Carmen. Rural white is almost shorthand for impoverished. If you're watching like the news or you're listening to people have some kind of conversation about economics or social issues or whatever, and you hear the term rural whites, it is almost always poor people, poor white people. You know, think, you know, the Ozarks and whatnot, the West Virginias.
And again, the Appalachians, which
the
rural whites from particular regions of this country are at the very bottom with about $50,000 in household income. So if we're concerned about an income disparity, fair enough, but I still think the way we would address it would be at the individual level. If we're talking, say, like an affirmative action program for college financial aid, why can't you just provide that aid to poor students? Why does it have to be provided to students of a particular race?
Now, he's making a very logical, fact-based argument, an evidence-based argument, if you would. And what he's doing is undercutting the very existence of not only the Black lady you kind of see halfway on the screen right there, but the other Black lady who should be the opposite of this one, because this lady you can kind of see right here next to the white guy, she admitted she works as like she does woke trainings. Basically, she works as that kind of lady who talks crazy to white people for money. The other Black lady is a Republican. So theoretically, you wouldn't expect her to be like woke. But the 2 Black women are basically on the same side of the issue the whole night. Actually, this one white guy was basically alone on his issues the whole night. It was a wild thing to break out. It's funny how, when he gets down to it, the political realities break out in a way that there's a pattern to it, perhaps, but it's not the typical pattern that we think about on the surface level. Like, oh, she's a Republican. Well, she's supposed to be conservative and think this and this. Yeah, but she's a Black woman, so there's that. And then there's the other white guy in the room, and it's like, well, he's a white man, and so he should have numbers and stats, and he should understand that the Black woman is telling some bull. And it's like, yeah, but he's gay. It's like, oh well, okay.
Okay, Mercy. So where did those statistics come from? What was the source?
That's the census data for the last U.S.
Do you know
census.
the majority of Black people or minority people do not even answer those surveys? So those numbers are very, very, very skewed. And so one of the things for me is the problem is with a lot of people of other races, I could say Caucasians or Appalachians, as you so nicely put it, is that nobody comes to the neighborhood and check out what is actually going on. Everybody looks at everything from an aerial view and tell us that we are okay. And so with those statistics,
what she's running into and what he just kind of stabbed her in the heart with eloquently, a lot of the black social grievances don't have statistical validity. Meaning the police brutality issue, the police are always shooting us. Technically, and studies have been done on this. A Black professor, shout out to Roland Fry, damn near lost his career trying to prove this thing, but a Black professor studied from a national level the incidence of police shootings, and he found out the police are less likely to shoot you if you're Black. Which only goes to show that the niggas that got shot almost overwhelmingly had it coming, because they really hate to get that kind of press. Like, what cop wants to go on TV, lose his job, and have to explain to the world why he shot this Black guy? No white cop wants to get on TV having to explain why he shot this nigga. It's over. Since the 60s, where we're not allowed to do that no more.
You would almost say that there is no poverty, there is no racism in America. You got the Indians on top, and where is the African American and the white people on the bottom? So it's those bad statistics that you use that would have everybody thinking we the new wealth class of America.
Well,
and it's just not true. Milwaukee is inherently one of the racist cities in the nation.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about the ego of obese Black women? Carmen in the chat, she says, Freeman, I just can't ever get over highlighting a humongous fat roll with a bright white and tight clothing. Yes, she's wearing basically fat women's athletic clothing. She has athletic clothing for fat women. That's what she's wearing right now. Let's go back a frame or two. Now you have an overweight Black woman who's just literally an athletic type of shirt right here. Like, that shirt is made to catch your sweat as you burn it up in the treadmill. And you just sitting there looking fat in front of white people. Shame on you. But look at this other person here. This is a white woman. She's a little bit overweight. And you mentioned how, Carmen, she's highlighting the humongous fat roll. Let me highlight the humongous fat roll. It's right here. Quadrant H11, I11, and J11. This whole row, if I could put a grid pattern on my computer screen, she's got a fat roll that takes up 3 rows on the grid, and it goes over. Lucky she helps the grid pattern with her shirt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna give her an extra grid because I know it's there. 8 squares. It's 8 grids. That's 3 rows and 8 spaces, right? That's how humongous the fat roll is. And she chose to highlight it. I know, right? She chose to highlight it with the tight athletic shirt. Notice the other woman who was a little bit bigger, though. And this is purely a style choice. And you know what they say on television, right? Black is actually slimming because the curves and the accentuation, it kind of gets blurred when you're just wearing mostly black. So what is she wearing? A loose fitting shirt that kind of almost slightly accentuates her boobs and a black outfit. You almost can't even tell she's a BBW. I'm just pointing out these are style choices right here.
This is not true. Milwaukee is inherently one of the racist cities in the nation, most segregated in the nation. And they also use shared revenue, which takes the money from the north side of Milwaukee and use it to fund projects in the entire state of Wisconsin. And while we have roads that have been bad for 30, 40, 50 years, I'm 47, so I drive up and down those same roads that have been broken for the last 50 years. We equally pay taxes on the north side of Milwaukee, but our taxes are not going back to us because of statistics like that say there's no problem over here.
What I hear
now, I mean, I think you really just try to obscure the argument by rejecting sound numbers. I can tell you for a fact that the Black community's tax dollars are not being used to prop up poor white people. It's actually the other way around.
What you're saying is like, well, if you say that Indians are number one and people from the Appalachia, white people from the
We're
are
the bottom.
We're at the bottom.
So
Where
then,
we at?
Correct.
And we don't even have a name. So, who is sub-Saharan Africans?
I'm sure
it ain't
it's,
us.
I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Where are they at? And where are they from?
But
I even got a problem with the term African American. My husband, who's from Libya, immigrated here, is an African American. I'm just American.
Your husband is an Arab. Your husband is an Arab. Hey, you know what's funny? Speaking of Arabs, someone burned down Governor Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. Someone burned down his house, and apparently it was like a disgruntled Arab dude married to a Black woman. I'm not drawing any dot. I'm not connecting any dots. I'm just telling you the facts of that little story right there. It's, interesting.
And so, if we look at that, if you want to say Black American, white American, all the terms are just skewed and throw it off. And so is again bad data like that leaves us where we are, and it creates more problems.
You're saying that it's looking at the issue.
How is it bad data if you can actually prove that poor Appalachian white people are at the bottom of America's economic ladder? What's bad about that data? Do you want to be struggling? Is that what it is? Do you desperately want to be worse off than the white people?
Issue of racism from the point of view that if you have group X that is doing better than group Y, or if there's a standard to be in group X and the group Y is not making that standard, then the standards must be racist because the group doesn't fit the demographic. The more interesting conversation I think to have is when we only look through the lens of race, what else are we not seeing?
When we talk about racism as a Black family, it is born and indoctrinated that there is racism. These are the things you got to look out for. There's a green book on how to travel through Wisconsin, through cities, how you got to navigate.
Currently?
There's still a green book. Absolutely. There's still sundown towns and places that we can't go as Black Americans. So when we get
I was muted. I'm sorry. I got to stop doing that. I just noticed that the black lady right here, who's allegedly like a Republican, she's just giving unprofessional. I just realized here, you got open toe flip-flop sandals here. Like nobody in this room wants to see the back of your feet, lady. I can guarantee you not one person in this room came here to look at the back of your feet, but you're going to show it to them because that's just the type of BBW you are.
As a Black family, it is born and indoctrinated that there is racism. These are the things you got to look out for. There's a green book on how to travel through Wisconsin, through cities, how you got to navigate.
Currently?
There's still a green book. Absolutely.
Well, even the gay white man doesn't believe that bull. Is there a green book right now to help Black people navigate all of the dangerous, evil parts of Wisconsin? And when did Wisconsin become the hotbed of anti-Black white racism?
Absolutely. There's still sundown towns and places that we can't go.
Are there sundown towns in Wisconsin? They got a green book app. No, oh man, this rumor is never dying. This rumor is never ever dying. And thank you, Carmen, with the $4.99 super chat. She says, "Don't mute yourself." You know what it is? Because sometimes I'll be like doing stuff in the background. I'm lighting a cigarette. Well, not a cigarette, but I'm using a cigarette lighter and wink, wink. And I don't always want to have that extra sound polluting the show. But yeah, I got to be better with the muting. My apologies. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. But thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
We need our weed. I don't wear it, but we need it.
As Black Americans. So when we get down to, if you guys never acknowledge that there is still racism, there is still systemic racism. Me as a mother of 5 Black young men, I have to tell my kids how to act. When you go here, this is what you do. You have to make this call. You have to be still, put your hands out the window. Don't make any sudden moves when you're getting pulled over. I have to.
There's an issue with the talk. You realize, all right, Black people allegedly, I never received the talk from either of my parents, and I was a street kid. I was out there a little bit. So it's like, it's just not much of a thing. Maybe middle class Black parents who are a little bit away from the street, they have the talk. I don't know. I never received the talk. But I think for Black people, the talk is how to behave around the police. And for white people, the talk is don't get caught alone around too many Negroes. Different kind of talks, right? We talk about different things. We got different fears and values, I imagine. But the problem I have with the issue of the talk is that why do you think you're not supposed to tell your kids how to behave with the police? Why is it a bad thing to explain to your children how to behave with people who are imbued with righteous lethality by your own local and federal government? And you know what's funny, Will? You said your dad was just like, don't get smart, answer yes or no, etc. I had something of a talk with my son about the police, and it wasn't anything that serious. I was just basically like, don't be scared of police. You have to learn to actually talk to the police. Don't ever feel like you should be running away or anything like that. Just talk to them, explain things or whatever. Don't be afraid like you just got to run all the time. But he's not that old yet. I haven't had the talk. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't think we're there in life yet. But I don't understand Black folks' the whole position of like, I have to explain to my children how to behave with the police. That's actually a good thing.
Groom my sons on how to act in white America.
What you just told me seems like examples of cultural racism, I guess. I guess maybe I struggle with the word structural based on what you just said, because it sounds like you just related examples of individual instances of racism that you might have to deal with. So,
but it's the structure, the power.
Notice, I don't know if it's because she's black or it's because she's a she, but for a Republican, you talk an awful lot about racism. You talk more about racism than the woke black woman next to you, and it's her like profession to talk about racism.
Power structures,
right?
The power structures.
Then you wouldn't have to deal with that.
Use them to oppress,
right?
But so to push back on that though, just a little bit. Obviously, there are racist people in America, and those people should be named and they should be punished, and the victims should be compensated. I think, though, when we talk about systemic racism, at least the first thing that comes in my mind as a lawyer and an advocate is the laws. And I will just straight up say there are only 2 races in this country that face legal discrimination, and it's whites and Asians. And in fact, I have a case right now at the Wisconsin Court of Appeals over a scholarship program that the state of Wisconsin runs.
Wait, I gotta read this comment. JB Designs, thank you for this comment, and I appreciate this middle class black perspective, because I think middle class black America needs to be more honest. JB Design says, I got the talk, but we were middle class, so it was like, stay away from those black, they ain't like us, and make sure someone knows where you at all times. We didn't fear cops, to be honest, right? Right, that's a more middle class attitude. And I know your talk was basically like the white people talk, you know? Watch them new niggas over there. You better watch them new niggas over there. That's your talk. It was kind of like the white people talk. Middle class black people are white adjacent, whether they want to be or not, because it just works out that way.
It's the Minority Undergraduate Retention Scholarship. And that scholarship is given out only to certain races, and one of them is not Asian. I'm not aware of any laws or programs in this country that specifically discriminate against Black people, Hispanic people, Indians.
I feel like there's a question of using race as a proxy for class.
Not only are there no laws that specifically disenfranchise Black people by race or Spanish people or whatever, but it's the opposite. The way our laws and policies are set up right now, they are designed to exclude white men specifically, straight white Christian men specifically. And it's not necessarily written into the policy. It's more filtered out by the way the policy is structured.
Happens a lot.
So I think Skylar's point is that if you just help people based on economics, you're going to disproportionately help Black people. Does it not make more sense for our policies to be about economics as opposed to using skin color as a proxy for economics?
Do you really want people to think, I can't do better than I'm doing because of my race? Is that the message that we want to say? Because its outcome is going to be determined by my race. That's what we're teaching in some ways when we focus on racism only.
No, that's not what that means. If I hear that that the desperate impact, that outcome is because, no, it's not because I can't learn because of my race. It's
I would agree. We wouldn't want to be saying that. I'm saying we should.
The message.
But now what he's saying is, don't help just the Black people. He's representing a Asian, Thai, Hmong, under the same laws as you would somebody from the civil rights or a Black person that was discriminated against. And I don't think it's fair. So a Thai Hmong person did not come over here and was on slavery and was neglected and not giving the same resource.
What is on slavery? What does that mean?
A Thai Hmong person did not come over here and was on slavery.
What is on slavery? Is slavery like that crack rock? Is slavery like the crack rock? Was you on that slavery? Did the white man get you hooked on that slavery? Was that the real secret history of America? The white man got us on that slavery rock, and we've been on that slavery rock ever since. For 400 years, we've been on that slavery rock. What is she even talking about? They wasn't on that slavery.
A Thai Hmong person did not come over here and was on slavery and was neglected and not giving the same resources. He just came over here, and now he get to fall under the guise of the same laws that was put in place to protect African, as you call them, or Black Americans.
How is she a Republican? Maybe she's probably from one of them towns where everybody's Republican, so it's not really a thought for you. But how are you a Republican though? You were woke as hell.
Now everybody is trying to get on the bandwagon because, oh, I'm the only Thai over here. But yeah, you weren't over here for 400 years building a country, being starved, being beaten, being raped, and not allowed to build wealth, generational wealth. You weren't redlined. You wasn't told that you couldn't get a house in Wauwatosa until recently, 1964. So the guys that you're trying to put all these new people under, because now they all Americans, because they all came over here, because we cannot define what's American, what's African American. We don't have proper terms for people. Now everybody's just, I just want to get in on the bandwagon because I'm gonna get some money.
Now she's actually making a solid criticism of what the woke, diverse, everybody welcome movement has become. You've kind of diluted the racial differences between people so that you can broaden this rainbow against the white man.
Like they just did with the MIT study that came out when they got rid of affirmative action in schools. I mean, I wasn't
You're so passionate about him, but not at the people that's right here, that's been building the country. Now, oh, let me another social service or humanitarian project for your law firm. He's Thai American. Let me help him now. All these Black people suffer. Even help the poor white people. Then there's so many people that's living here that's poor, impoverished. You go to Thai and see how much financial aid they give you.
So then why would you not agree with a program that focuses on economic need?
When they give us back what they took or redline.
I just want to pause to point out she said go to Thai. Where's Thai?
How much financial living here that's poor, impoverished. You go to Thai and see how much financial aid they give you.
Is Thai a place or a person or a group of people? How do you go to Thai? Can you draw me a map?
People suffer. Even help the poor white people. Then there's so many people that's living here that's poor, impoverished. You go to Thai and see how much financial aid they give you.
So then why would you not agree with a program that focuses on economic need?
When they give us back what they took or redline and stopped us from getting, then help everybody else. America's problem is we don't have our own identity.
Who is they? And I noticed she's almost like, just with her girth and her obstinance, she's kind of becoming the center of gravity in the conversation right now. And I feel like the panel, except for the one white guy on the right, the panel is doing a terrible job of bringing some reality to her emotionality, because she's kind of getting up on an emotional hype, and they're unafraid. They're afraid to challenge that squarely because she's kind of bringing some energy that they don't want to match.
When they give us back what they took or redline and stopped us from getting, then.
And who is they? Who is they? The banks? Well, who owned the bank? I'm pretty sure there's paperwork you can track down about who owned the bank, and you can narrow this problem down, because you can't say the government owns the banks. That's not how it works here. The banks ultimately have to be responsible for things like redlining. Who owned the bank? Don't just hit me with a vague, random they. That doesn't solve problems. That doesn't answer questions. And that's the type of hustle that, and this is why I'm laughing at the idea of her being a Republican, because that's the typical woke blame shuffle that people always use. Like, oh, they made these rules. They put these systems in place. All right, well, like, read the paperwork and tell me who exactly did what. Don't just give me a vague they so I can walk around looking at every random white person like he's, what's his name? Who was the bad guy from the civil rights movement? Bull Connor. You want me to look at every white person like they're Bull Connor because I got this vague notion of they did something bad to me. It's a whole game. But she's a black Republican, right? This is a weird flick. This is a weird thing you got going here. It almost makes me not trust the concept of a black Republican, a black conservative either. What are you trying to conserve? 1960 pro-blackness? Is that what black conservatism ultimately means? I want to conserve 1960s pro-blackness? And this is why we're right-wing. We are deeply right-wing.
Help everybody else. America's problem is we don't have our own identity and we go helping everybody else. We feeling the war here. We feeling the war there. Why? Why do we need to help everybody and not help the people that are here? We don't help veterans. We don't help homeless. We don't help poor whites or poor black people. We helping everybody else. We got billions and billions of dollars in debt to other countries and have not helped the people right here on our own doorstep that we call citizens.
I think part of the problem here is the innocent third party. Okay.
What innocent third party? They come in here milking the system and y'all let them.
Can I?
But if we do it, it's a crime. If they do it, it's okay.
Keep going, Saylor.
Thank you. The Students for Fair Admissions decision, which was the Harvard affirmative action case from just a couple of year, maybe 2 years ago. One of the issues in that case is that college admissions, unfortunately, is zero sum. Right? There is a finite amount of spots in a freshman class. And that's unfortunate. For so long as it is zero sum, Harvard did not want to take Asian students. It held Asian students to a substantially higher standard. And it did that because it was worried that if it went off ACT scores, SAT scores, GPA, those kind of metrics, which I understand can be controversial for other reasons, but if it went off those metrics exclusively, there would be too many Asians, and it didn't want that. So,
he's kind of reminding me of another problem I noticed with diversity and this whole drive for inclusion. It lowers the overall concept of standard. And so you kind of do have this problem of like the black standard and the white standard. And what winds up happening is you don't force the highest achieving black people to live up to the quote unquote white standard. So then by default, you drag the entire group closer to the black standard. And I don't think that's helpful.
What it did to, and I think it did it with good motives, right? It wanted to make up for all of these problems that you're seeing, all of the racist past and all of these issues. But the way that it got there was to victimize these Asian students. And I'm struggling to understand what, from the kind of systemic racism, institutional racism perspective.
And that's a reason why Asians will always be accused of this model minority kind of slander. It's because for Asians, there is no griping about the quote unquote white standard. It's simply the standard. And they go about the business of meeting the standard. They make no issue of, you know, the standard being white, or we don't set the standard. You know, the whole conversation around like European beauty standards. You don't really hear Asian women bitching about European beauty standards, right? They just go about the business of doing what they got to do. Not the Black community.
You do with that, because even if I concede that it all exists and that it's a really heinous problem and we need to fix it, there are situations, and not all situations, but there are some situations like that where it seems like the policy solution that's being proposed is to take it out on people who had nothing at all to do with any of this stuff. And their ancestors didn't have anything to do with it either.
But it's interesting in terms of thinking about Harvard. We've sort of elevated Harvard as like the place to be able to go. And what makes a Harvard education better than, say, UW-Madison or UW-Milwaukee or whatever. But I'm
You get
not,
to say you went there. That's what makes it
right,
better.
there you go.
Well, that's not quite fair.
That's,
but big part of it.
But it is, but I don't disagree that there needs to be some looks at some of those things and be challenged. You know, like Harvard needed to be challenged in terms of, what are you doing? You know, like that's not transparent. And I think every institution should be as transparent as they can be about what their standards are. I don't disagree in the places where we've lost our way, but I still want to go back to what you were saying is people that have been here a long time are not getting access to some of those resources while the newbies coming in are. And is that fair?
Okay. So Wisconsin.
Having the government be this kind of supreme arbiter who decides who gets access to all these resources is it's ultimately a bad move. And the nature of government does just kind of dictate that you have a level of authority over that kind of thing. You can actually decide where resources get pushed, but that combination of incentive always creates corruption.
Runs a diverse suppliers program. It gives out about $200 million a year. And the way it works is that if you're a minority-owned business, you get what's called a 5% bid preference, okay? So if you say, I will sell pencils to the state of Wisconsin, and I'm going to charge the state of Wisconsin $100, if you're a minority-owned business, the state of Wisconsin treats that as $95 for a bid. And if a white business owner or a minority who is not within this right
The
category
parameters, right?
bids 96, they're going to lose. So I think that it is, and I bring this up just because some of what your argument I took to be that, well, who really needs to attend Harvard? It's maybe not that important. And
It sounds like I'm trashing Harvard. I'm not trying to trash
people
Harvard.
that are, again, why are we defending Asian American or whoever they is or Tao when we still got problems right here in America? We still haven't solved the black and white problem.
Does it strike?
Which I think that's the core of all of it, like how we
and
keep,
everybody else is just running under the guise.
You know, I don't think America's biggest social issue is the black and white problem. I think we have, at this point, generations of unscrupulous actors who benefit on exacerbating the black and white problem. But I do not think America's main issue is the black and white problem. I think it's the man-woman problem. I think giving women access to authority that is traditionally outside of their scope, it's just been chipping away at all the reasons that men have to go about doing the things that men normally do. I swear we could solve feminism if we took women's rights away. Men would work out a deal and we would just police our borders independently. And then we would just go home and tell the women how to, run the home. But if you took women's rights away, we could solve the racial issue really shortly, really easily too.
Having these types of issues and clashes, and it comes through because we've never had a true
I want to add more
come to
stuff on the
terms
Band-Aid
with
on top of the
the
Band-Aid,
ways in which
but never Fix the wound.
Black as descendants of slavery, particularly, have had that treatment and had to deal with white people this whole time. Every other racial group kind of hits the crosshairs of that.
Become
and
a
I'm not
protected
saying
class.
that it's fair, but I'm saying that's what happened when you have unresolved issues.
You know, when we think about South Africa and doing truth and reconciliation, we've never told the truth about our nation.
Truth and reconciliation, huh? America doesn't want to tell the truth about Black crime. Like, I'm willing to hear all the truth about slavery and at one time a white guy wore a black guy's skin as gloves or something like that. I don't know, I'm just making it up. I'm just saying, I'm willing to hear all that if we can also be honest about Black crime. You realize Birth of a Nation, that allegedly racist movie? I mean, it's not alleged, it's pretty racist, but you know, when they played Birth of a Nation at the White House, I think under Woodrow Wilson, you realize the plot of Birth of a Nation is basically Black crime, right? I know it was white men on horses and hoods and they was doing the racism thing, but that wasn't the plot. The story of the movie was Black crime.
In terms of the ways the nation was built, et cetera.
We haven't?
Yeah, I would
No.
agree
with
with
that.
that. What do you mean?
Well, so when you're saying
lot
what
of
you're
people don't
saying,
know.
if we haven't told the truth about how our nation was built and what was done to the Native people that were here and the genocide that
The
happened,
BIPOC people, correct.
we haven't told the truth about most of that.
Absolutely.
And if we haven't told the truth, back to what you were trying to say of what are we trying to address? I would say,
well, there's truth and then there's truth. Here's truth. Just recently in Guatemala, archaeologists uncovered a Mayan sacrificial temple that was almost exclusively used to sacrifice young children, right? Child sacrifice, right? Truth. And the European Christian conquistador colonizers, say that 5 times fast too. The Christian conquistador colonizers, they put an end to the Mayan child sacrifice. It's also true. If I add those two true things together, I think then the sum of the equation was that colonizing the child sacrifice people was a good thing. Right? Like, we can be honest about America's history, but then we can also be really honest about America's history. Like, yeah, we murdered the Indians. We did. We wiped out a lot of Indians. And I'm sure there was a lot of people who had a good time doing it. Loved every minute of it. It was like Brad Pitt in that tank. Best job I ever had, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it was, but they were kind of savage too. There is no such thing as the noble savage. Have you ever met a noble junkyard dog? There are no noble savages. Savagery is not noble. And so we have this weird guilt complex that in order to build the greatest thing since, we're like the greatest civilization since Atlantis right now. But in order to do that, you know, a couple hundred years ago, we had to wipe out a lot of Indians and bring over a lot of slave labor. We don't do that kind of thing anymore, but that's what it took. You know, those were the eggs that it took to make this neo-Atlantean omelet, right? We are the new Atlanteans here. And you gotta break a few eggs to make some omelets. And all I'm saying is, if we're gonna be honest about history, let's not be guilt-ridden honest. Let's look back with, you know, admiration. Maybe not everybody can be admirable, but I'm just saying, let's not look back as if it's purely evil. Because what winds up happening is going forward, if you had to do it all over again with the same morals and values and wisdom that you're fighting for now, you'd never build anything. You'd never get anything done.
Say, if we haven't told the truth about a lot of that stuff, we're going to just keep piling, because you were saying the Band-Aids on top of each other. And I'm thinking, we don't know the truth because it's not taught to us. We don't talk about it. It's not brought up.
Okay, so maybe we are not talking about it enough. But to say that we're not, I don't agree with that, because I know that my kids have learned it cycle after cycle after cycle. Doesn't mean
But we
that they
always
shouldn't.
say you and I are unicorns, though. We got to get the masses talking about it.
This is an excerpt from an executive order, I'll let you guess from which president, that prohibits federal contractors from holding workplace trainings that teach things like, quote, an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, or that anyone should feel discomfort or guilt because of their race. What do you guys think of this proposed regulation that anyone who wants to work with the government should not have any kind of workplace training materials that espouse any of these concepts?
Overall, it's, I think, very difficult to take issue with any particular statement that is in this, in particular, and I know this.
Yeah, Trump is basically outlawing the very structure of the DEI entry into the government. Is a very tactful, like scalpel-like approach to the deep state. We're just going to make it illegal to be woke in the government. Go be woke in the private sector. See how that works out.
Might be controversial to say, but this sounds a lot like MLK's position from his famous speech of, I want my children to be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character.
If you limit that bears responsibility, then that kind of X out how you can't talk about the ways in which people, particularly white people, have benefited from racism of the past, which could be important in a workplace setting.
So this was part of a Trump executive order. So this isn't an aspirational or hypothetical thing. This was part of the Trump executive order.
Don't surprise me, because it sure look like it.
So Trump passed this because he said that even in the Treasury Department, people are being taught, don't encourage people to be colorblind, don't say things like judge people by their individuality, and people were being taught that white people should feel guilty about the country's past, right? So that's what prompted this, is that workplace trainings were doing this. So knowing that, what do you guys think of those ideas? I mean, people being taught, for
that's
instance,
my work. That's what I do for a living. So
yeah.
I provide trainings.
Yep, Trump just banned you from the federal government. And that's a good thing. We don't need you providing trainings. You look untrained. You look like you've never trained to do anything useful to the world.
Yeah.
And I talk about race in those trainings unapologetically with no problem.
Why do we need a woman in the federal government whose job it is to talk about race unapologetically with no problem? Like, how does that help us fight China?
Yes. So knowing that, what do you guys think of those ideas? I mean, people being taught, for
that's
instance,
my work. That's what I do for a living. So
yeah.
I provide trainings.
Yeah.
And I talk about race in those trainings unapologetically with no problem. So with that, I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty. And number one, I can't make you feel guilty. You own your own feelings. I can produce and share information. Then you choose how you want to respond to that. So I think it's necessary to have the cultural sensitivity trainings, is sometimes what they call them that way. A lot of people don't want to say they're doing the anti-racism training because it's so heated, but for those people who do want to have that direct anti-racism training, I provide those too, and we can really talk at and look at the history of race in the country and then how it shows up now today. And I think that that's healthy, that because these people all then show up in a workspace together.
I kind of fell behind on this one, but shout out to Fifi Punto in the Rumble chat. He says, with the $1 Rumble chat, he says, I grew up in the South BX. The talk from my dad was don't be a statistic. Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of fell back on the Rumble chat. I apologize. I'm going to keep up on that. But thank you for supporting the show. Hit that like button for me,
How do you
guys.
show up and work with these types of things at play and not address them?
Well,
just to point this out, I think there's very little evidence that these reduction of bias trainings actually do reduce bias. And I think the evidence is actually even lower when people are compelled to do it. Compelling people to take reduction of bias training, I'm not aware of any data that would support that would work. And just
yeah, forcing people to like Black people doesn't make people like Black people. It actually makes them dislike Black people greatly. And it's a weird irony of the whole DEI movement, right? The harder you try to diversity, the more we hate the diversity movement. And it creates a weird like feedback loop. The more Black America attempts to impress itself upon white America, the more unlikable Black America becomes overall, because like why would you want to bother with people who are constantly bitching at you and trying to accuse you of weird things that you actually never did, some other guy did a long time ago, but you got to pay them money? It's like, imagine some guy who keeps showing up demanding you pay a bill for something that, for a meal at a restaurant you've never been to. Not only have you never been to the restaurant was open and closed way before you were ever born, but you got to pay for this meal. It would make you not like Black people.
So that the audience maybe has an example of the kind of thing we're talking about. The American Bar Association is now requiring first-year law students to go through this kind of DEI reduction of bias training. And the University of Wisconsin Law School had a big scandal over this about 6 or 7 months ago, because it gave a handout, and I have the quote here right from the handout, quote, "Racism equals racial prejudice plus systemic institutional power. To say people of color can be racist denies the power imbalance inherent in racism." I don't understand why that kind of ideology needs to be taught anywhere. And the other point I want to make is that at least that particular training, and I think some of these trainings more generally, it got really weird, like just really, really weird. There was a point where the students were told to fill out a survey, and one of the questions was their scale of agreement from 1 to 5 on whether, quote, "people find me attractive because of my race." There were
that is a weird question. Do people like me just because am I sexy because I'm Black? You know, every day I get up and I go and take a shower and I look at myself in the mirror and I look myself in the eyes and I ask myself, am I only sexy because I'm Black?
Or law students who said to themselves, why should I have to sit through this? And I don't really see the harm in saying, if you're a government contractor, right, and you want government funds.
Hey, Webster, I was just thinking about that. I'm too sexy for my race. Too sexy for my race. Too sexy for niggas. I'm too sexy to be a nigga. That's why I had to get my life together. I'm too sexy to be a nigga. Shout out to the Midwest request with the $2 Rumble chat. I mean, the $2 super chat. He says, "You ain't gotta lie to kick it. You don't know nothing about me, bro. If I tell you I'm too sexy to be a nigga, you supposed to just believe me, all right? That is my truth. The Midwest request, I am too sexy to be a nigga. That is my truth. You're not allowed to question it. You just have to go with it."
You can't waste time with this kind of thing. I mean, the government itself shouldn't be engaged in that kind of ideology.
But from the information you already presented earlier, you've already proven you don't know how racism works in this country. So this is why you have to have those conversations.
Now, that's her job. That's what she trains people in. She teaches people how racism works in this country. Do you need like a college level class to learn how racism works, right? Is racism like advanced engineering or something? You could only properly understand it if you're an adult who's like made it to the college level of your education. You can't just like take a weekend class at the community college. You have to like fully enroll.
Even if people don't like them, them asking and making that
That's
statement.
a really strange question about attractive in terms
Right.
of that's weird.
But I can get why they may say that about who.
Really?
Well, it's a study that came out from the psychology magazine.
Yeah, Webster. She teaches advanced racism at Berkeley.
That says Black women and Chinese men are the most unattractive people. Think how people think about people who are obese. Think about how people think about, okay, even skin shade.
Are you equating ugly to racism? I'm almost lost in this whole chapter here.
But from the information you already presented earlier, you've already proven you don't know how racism works in this country. So this is why you have to have those conversations, even if people don't like them. Them asking and making that statement.
That's a really strange question about attractive in terms of that's weird.
But I can get why they may say that about who.
Really?
Well, it's a study that came out from the psychology magazine that says Black women and Chinese men are the most unattractive people. Think how people think about people who are obese. Think about how people think about, okay, even skin shade, which we get in our own culture. The lighter you are, the more beautiful people think you are. The darker you are, the more unattractive people. So me having hair like this, natural, well, we already have big conflicts and fights about what's considered professional hair. Right. So appearance and race go together.
But isn't the
and
case,
that comes up in your job.
Isn't the case though?
No. And there's a fundamental racial reality that keeps being danced around, and we create these little sidebar issues like colorism and the European beauty standard and racism as a whole really is a sidebar issue. You know the real problem of racial grievance? White people created the modern world and Black people did not. So the standards and the customs and the practices of the modern world are largely created by white people because white people created the modern world, right? And for the most part, Black people did not. There are Black people on an individual level who have definitely made contributions and little inventions here and there. But by and large, the modern world is the Western European world. Even Asia was playing catch up to the Western European world. And only now are they on the cusp of overtaking the Western world. But the modern world was created by white people. And there's this pernicious, constant envy that frankly will not go away. It won't be allowed to go away, even if it could. I don't know if it could. But there is an envy from a lot of the non-white, especially the actual Black part of the world, because when people complain about the European beauty standard, what should be the beauty standard if you didn't create the modern world, right? Why should the beauty standard of the modern world be Black when the modern world wasn't really created by Black people? It was created by the Western world. And so Western white European women will be the standard of the world they've created. And when people bitch about that, it just reeks of cope and butthurt. And there's no real solve for that.
here. One of the things you said that you don't want anybody to feel bad. Basically, you're saying that as an individual, by virtue of his or her race, sex, bears a responsibility for actions committed in the past.
I don't
What do you mean by
to be
that?
able to not talk about benefits. I feel like if this is in enforced, then you block, you're gonna use that somehow to block me from talking about
That's true. I mean,
ways in which people do benefit from.
Okay, so I benefit from being white, is what you're saying, and you would like me to bear responsibility for actions committed in the past.
No.
But
I'm telling you what I would like to talk about.
Okay, but you would like to talk
about
specifically.
Benefits.
But you disagreed with F being not
because
allowed.
F will keep me from talking about benefits.
But you don't want But you want to talk about how I am as a white female. Now I bear some responsibility here for the past.
That's what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying. I just said what I'm saying.
Rhonda's saying that if she talks about
you don't want to hear what I'm saying.
If she talks about who is,
yeah, you only want to talk about benefits, but you don't want to talk about what it all means, because what it means is the white woman is guilty for something that happened in the past. This is all a mind
I
game.
just said what I'm saying.
if she talks about who has benefited from the past, someone is going to feel like, oh, now I feel responsibility for this, or I feel, I mean,
you're trying to say this, and it's like, okay.
I mean, which is what, I mean, look, this.
Ooh, I just had a really heavy thought. Who benefited more from slavery, white America or black America? I know. It sounds like an automatic slam dunk. Like, obviously the white man, because you got to make all the money. You got to beat up the slaves. You got to have the black women's and all that. You had little light-skinned pickaninny babies. I know the easy answer to that. If I ask you, who benefited more from slavery, white America or black America? Almost every black person on a personal point of racial pride, on a personal point of purely and nothing but racial pride, you have to say black America benefited. You have to say white America benefited more, right? But what if I were to argue that black America benefited more from slavery, and I would only raise one simple issue? There's one reason, well, maybe two, but they're both kind of the side, two sides of the same coin. But black America benefited more from slavery than white America, simply for the fact that white America would exist with or without black slavery, but black America wouldn't be here without black slavery. And on top of that, without black slavery, would you want to actually be African right now? Would you rather be black American right now? All the bad things that happened, everything that happened along the way, fine. Nothing changed. Would you rather be black American right now, or would you rather be born in Africa right now? Like whatever year you were born. Like, I was born in 1981 in Brooklyn, New York, in America. Would I rather be born in 1981 anywhere in like South Africa? Would I rather be born in 1981 anywhere in Nairobi? Would I rather be born 1981 anywhere in Nigeria? Would I rather be born 1981 anywhere in Ghana? Or would I rather be born Brooklyn, New York, 1981 in America, current timeline as we have it right now? Or slavery never happened and we just stayed in Africa just chilling like how we be chilling.
This order is trying to stop DEI workshops like what Rhonda does. So, I mean, yes, we can quibble about this language, but like at the end of the day, like that's why she objects to it.
So she's saying benefits. I understand. I'm sort of putting that conversation with the earlier conversation.
That's not
saying that we haven't come to terms with.
I'm not trying to make anybody feel guilty or anything, but I think it's the awareness. It is sometimes white people and some people of color too that are still not aware of how much racism plays a part into what is or what is not happening. And so then when something does happen that is centered in racism, people feign shock and surprise because we don't address and talk about it enough.
You feel like we don't talk about race that much?
What we end up talking about is when something happens. We will talk about the one-off. So like some of his studies, we'll talk about that. Like, okay, the Thai student didn't get admitted in because of this policy. They're just preferencing. That's what we'll talk about. We don't oftentimes get into this whole systemic really conversation about it. Because
I don't agree that it's systemic. So maybe we could. So maybe that's why.
I meet a lot of people who believe that too, and they want to keep it in the one-offs. But when you keep it in the one-offs, then you can't address some of these larger policies. So this is a policy that blocks.
What about this idea that, and I don't know if you said you support this, but that was addressed in the executive order, that colorblindness is an ideal we should avoid. You know, like when I was growing up, this was the ideal, that you should not treat people differently based on race. This was a sort of foundational value that I was taught by liberal progressive people growing up. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's part of your training, but it does seem like this is part now of our sort of nouveau anti-racism.
Yeah, once upon a time, we all understood that you shouldn't treat people differently based upon race. And now we totally accept that the laws should discriminate against white men. Like it's a little bit, it's newer in America, so it's not as blatant. And then frankly, America has other like protections legally that you can't just go full anti-racism. But like in the UK, they flat out say no white men allowed to apply for these jobs or whatever. And it's just like, you can't tell me you're oppressed in a country that literally oppresses people on your behalf.
That colorblindness is an ideal that we shouldn't. There's something problematic about that. So, like, where do you stand on that?
Do you believe in the golden rule?
Yeah.
And I would say I do not believe in the golden rule. The golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated. I would say treat people how they want to be treated. So that requires that you have to get to know.
You can't simply treat people how they want to be treated, because that's like the transgender argument. What if you want to be treated like a beautiful, skinny 18-year-old white girl? What if you want to be treated like a handsome, muscular white man? I don't know if I should just treat you the way you want to be treated. I got to treat you according to how you show up.
That person in order to treat them the way they want to be treated. If you just treat people the way you want to be treated, then you're only coming from your ideas, your paradigms, and then your cultural norms of what you think is acceptable, which means that you can bypass what they need to feel comfortable, what they need to be safe, and what they need to be seen, because you feel like, well, I'm just treating them the way I've been taught to treat people. So it requires us to go a step further. So that's what I would say about colorblind. The colorblind idea would say, it kind of glosses through and just say, well, we're just all people. We're just all God's creation. We just all here. We all bleed the same blood.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. And exactly. Okay. But now.
Carmen Sweetheart says, treat me like a tropical princess. Oh, Carmen. You don't realize, if I treat you like a tropical princess, I have to viciously colonize you. I can do that though. If you're into that kind of thing, I can colonize you if you like, because you're a tropical princess, and that's what happens to them. So if you're totally down for that kind of thing, I can Pocahontas you if you really want. But I'm just saying that I treat people how they show up. You want to get the tropical princess treatment, I will plant the flag on your island.
I have specificity. It's specific things about me. If you try to treat me the way you treat her.
Oh my God. It's such a weird, that was a weird jump back into it. Now she got specificity. Now she got rules. Now she about to tell me ain't no romance without finance. What is this woke black chick talking about? I'm lost all over. All of a sudden I'm lost.
Okay, but now I have specificity. It's specific things about me. If you try to treat me the way you treat her, she has clearly shown up as an individual. We are not the same people.
Well, I think we agree
Martha
on that.
is
No,
a different person.
I just want to pick up on kind of the in there, because it sounded like what you were saying is that we should treat people as individuals, which is what I've been saying this entire time. That is exactly what colorblindness is, right? So again, I hate to keep harping on the college thing, but it's a really good way, I think, of conceptualizing this. You can have a race-conscious, race-based program that says we're going to give financial aid to Black people, but that's going to be over-inclusive. Like, why does Oprah Winfrey's children need the benefit of a program like that? And the answer is they don't. And when you consider the individual needs and you treat people without regard to their race, I just don't see why that's a bad thing. Now, if someone has been
And
the
that's
victim,
not what I'm saying.
Okay.
You didn't hear me say that.
Well, I'm not.
Every time somebody point out how full of shit you are, you be like, "That's not what I said."
I'm not entirely sure that I followed.
I said I don't like the colorblind is just this like one swath, like somebody like, oh, I don't see color.
That's not.
No,
really,
that's just. I mean, that's in
a
denial. I mean, anyone who says I don't see color,
the
like
way,
that's crazy.
the way I've gotten colorblind a lot when people say that.
That's a caricature of the argument.
But it's also. I mean, colorblindness.
No,
is
it's not a caricature of the argument if that's something I've actually experienced.
So
people saying, "Oh, I don't see color."
Yes.
Well, they don't mean that literally.
Because they'll say we all bleed the same blood.
Yeah, but it's a metaphor.
If they don't, a metaphor for what?
Do you know where the metaphor comes from?
Well, see, explain to me. This gonna be a part of a white niece that I don't know yet. Explain it to me.
Yeah, white man, please explain to the Black woman that most people are not actually colorblind. Like, as a physical malady, most people are not in fact colorblind. So when they tell you that, they are attempting to give your Black ass the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it comes from Justice Harlan's dissent in Plessy v. Ferguson, where he was this was separate
1890s.
Right. Thank you. This was the case that established the legal principle of separate but equal. And there was one justice who dissented, and that justice said our Constitution is colorblind. And what he meant by that is that our legal systems should look at individuals. We don't have a caste system, and it took until Brown v. Board of Education for that dissent to become the law of the land. And that is the phrase, that is where the phrase colorblindness comes from. And it is a caricature of the argument to say that colorblindness means in some literal sense we don't see color. Of course, the vast majority of people see color. But then there's the next step of whether our laws should treat people differently based on that basis. And I just, they can't.
But why?
But I was going to ask you, what do you think of the colorblind ideal of treating people based not on based as treating people as individuals, not factoring skin color?
If we just talking about 2024, fine. I was going to say to him about colorblindness, and so, but you see what they did? They made a law to fix it. Where's the other laws to fix the rest of the stuff that was done? Laws that are saying this was the wrongs that happened. Let's fix them and move forward.
We're talking about reparations, which I mean,
absolutely.
That's,
so if we go through reparations,
the Black Republican conservative woman now wants reparations too. She probably want a Big Mac too. I don't know.
Is the way that we're going to be able to move forward?
Are you going to put a Band-Aid on my wound and heal it and heal my generation? Or you can't go back and do something. The only thing that you could do was pay me for the work that I've put in. The cotton my dad is 83 years old. He never got paid for picking cotton.
Are you wounded or are you working? Those feel like two totally different realities.
But how much money did y'all make off of that cotton? My dad's still alive.
Right.
He was born in 41.
Right.
Nobody gave him no money for picking the cotton, let alone the sharecroppers that was supposed to give them the land, kept hoodwinking and bamboozling them out of that same land. Oh, no, you didn't pay enough for it. Or I gave you that free meal, so now we can't give you the land that you worked.
Right.
So he's still alive. That's stuff that happened so long
But he
ago
ain't
that
gonna
we
get
can't
nothing for
correct, right the wrongs, as I keep saying. Just right the wrong. Give my daddy the money, even if you don't give it to me.
So I think there would be a lot of practical problems in actually trying to do reparations, but but just to point this out, I'm not sure that this nation has ever truly tried colorblindness. Okay, so we had slavery for hundreds of years. After we had slavery, we had Jim Crow, had that for many decades, and then we went right to affirmative action. And I don't think anyone here has argued it explicitly, but there is this belief that, well, colorblindness, or as I would probably prefer to call it, race neutrality, just can't work. And I guess my point would be, so I'm not sure when as a society, other than maybe the last 2 or 3 years when some people have tried to do this, but I don't think there's been a prolonged period where we've actually tried to do this.
To my original point, we have such a difficult time in this country wrestling with what people would say is one of the original sins of this country is racism. And so why would we be surprised that we haven't had long periods of time where anything was race neutral, which I understand what you're saying, even on the other end where we create these benefit programs that's based on race to try to mitigate some of those things. I know you're not speaking for that as I would, but I am in agreement with you. Yes, we haven't had any prolonged period of time, whether we're trying to do something for good or whether it's all these devastating things, because we have a serious issue with racism in this country, which is that's what makes it systemic.
Would you concede on some level that 50 or 60 years of affirmative action is a form of reparations?
No. Everybody else got a big check.
Let's talk about what is being done.
I feel like that is a mythology in Black America that everybody else got a big check. To the extent that is almost true, certain individuals, a part of certain groups, got some money, but there was never a widespread you get a check. Like even in like the Native Americans, they don't all own a casino. You know what I mean? Not every Jew got a bag from World War II. But if you let Black people tell the story, everybody got their money except for Black people.
When Biden got into office, he repealed that Trump executive order. On the first day of his office, he wrote the following.
The federal government should pursue a comprehensive approach to advancing equity for all, and affirmatively advancing equity is the responsibility of the whole of our government. For instance, the order required federal agencies to create a plan for investing specifically in underserved communities.
I mean, everybody would agree with equality. We all want equality and want to enjoy equality. But equality of outcomes is disparate impact. Equality of outcomes is different than equality of opportunity. It's different. It's different because you cannot guarantee the equality of outcome. Everybody's outcome is based on a variety of things. It's basically saying, first of all, there's no standardization because in the equality of outcomes, we all have to.
That equality of outcomes is really the killer, because if you kind of pull back a lot of the curtain from the Black grievances and the political arguments, what a lot of the Black grievance boils down to and what the equality of outcomes attempts to solve is Black folk want to live the kinds of lives that white people seem to be able to live without the behaviors and the practices that white people put into living those lives. It's like, I want what white people have without doing what white people do. And it's a tough dream to have.
I want what you white hoes get, and I want it today, ASAP, not tomorrow.
To end up at the same place. I get it that we can all start at the same place. And of course, this is Kamala Harris's thing, that we all have to end up at the same place. There's too many factors that determine where people end up. It's their meritocracy, their working ethic, it's their family culture, it's their intelligence, it's their schooling, it's their decision. Like there's many things.
It's like, just let not racism be one of those things. How about that?
Well, I guess I would want to know what that means,
fine.
because
So let's just not let that be one of them.
But if racism is already, or racial discrimination is already illegal on the federal level, the question is what more can you do?
It's illegal to rape people, but people still get raped.
Well, they get raped a whole lot less because it's illegal. I mean, there's only no, is that wrong?
It's a weird thing to laugh at. Is it funny that the law means less women get attacked? I don't know what that was about. Weird flex.
And Martha,
It's
you were
illegal
about
to rape people, but people still get raped.
Well, they get raped a whole lot less because it's illegal. I mean, there's only no, is that wrong, Skylar?
So I think we got to back up for a second.
Yeah.
And I think this goes to your last point, Corey. We need to think for a second about whether equality of outcome is actually something we care about. Okay, because
we just want the opportunity.
Or if it's possible.
That's all we want.
Keep going.
But, yeah, and I would agree that equal opportunity is really important, but equal opportunity is very different than equal outcome. So again, just to go back to a stat that I gave earlier, 54% of NFL players are Black. No one thinks that's a problem, and it's not a problem, and I'm not saying it's a problem. But
I don't know. What percentage of the owners are white?
Exactly. I'm about to say, I don't know about if nobody thinks that's a problem. He talked about the NFL, and he doesn't hear anybody complaining about that. And I'm saying
one
that's
employer
not
out of many. How many other companies are so white dominant? You talk about one compared to how many companies?
And I'm going to have to shut this down pretty soon. It's getting a little late over here, but I think we're going to end on this note about white dominated companies and Black representation. Have I ever told you guys about the per capita wars? It's an online thing, mostly on Twitter, because that's what I don't social media. Like, I don't really do Facebook and Instagram like that, but I'm on Twitter for, content purpose, right? One of the things I found on Twitter is they have what I've called the per capita wars. Every so often, stats will come up like, oh, you white people, there's more white people on welfare than there are Black people, which is true. Because there are just a great amount more white people in the country than there are Black people, right? But per capita, there are more Black people on welfare. Meaning, as a segment of your individual group population, there are a higher percentage of Black people on welfare than there are white people on welfare. And also, conversely, more white people per capita contribute to the welfare scheme than Black people who contribute to the welfare scheme, because the poverty rate in Black America is drastically different than white America. So from a per capita perspective, there are more white people on welfare from an individual level, but from a per capita level, there are more white people who actually are financially responsible for the very existence of welfare, right? And again, the crux of this issue here is per capita. So when you hear Black women like the lady that was just talking say, well, you got all these white corporations and white companies, but how come there aren't as many Black corporations and Black companies? It's because there literally just aren't as many Black people in this country. By a huge degree. We're still like, the 1350 rule still relatively applies. Like, for 13% of the conversation, how many times should I hear your voice? And once the 1350 number started to get a little bit more widely known, it kind of clarified another reality. Like, Why do you need this much representation? Why are you everywhere when you're only 13% of anywhere? Years ago, and I keep having reason to tell this story, but years ago there was that infamous Twitter night. There are too many black women in public. Like it was a whole conversation when Twitter Spaces was a new thing, and it just became hard to. It was unavoidable. It was impossible to not notice. Why are 13% of the people everywhere on TV? But you're only 13% of anything anywhere, generally speaking. And it just kind of creates this, it shatters an illusion, frankly. That's what it does. It shatters an illusion. And for Black people to constantly ask to be represented at numbers that greatly exceed our physical representation, it only further shatters the illusion of where things truly stand in the country. And so I think we're kind of coming to an end of the woke era. Who knows where things go now? It looks like we're moving into a more right wing generation. We'll see how that plays out. But time will tell. Time will tell. But like I said, I actually kind of I started late and I'm running overtime, so I really got to get out of here, man. I'll catch you guys later. We will come back tomorrow maybe with another show, but thank you guys so much for following. Appreciate your support. Hit that like button on your way out of the channel. But I got to get out of here. You guys have a great night. Appreciate y'all for coming through.
It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's done.